So I thought that today we would make this practice about mindful transitions. So I was in an Instagram challenge that had a bunch of crazy transitions in it, and don't worry, I'm not gonna it's not gonna be like handstand to whatever. But it got me thinking about the fact that there's a lot of juicy stuff in the transitions. And I think that sometimes when we just jump into, jump the feet wide and turn the feet and get into the pose, and then of course I always layer on a whole bunch of other work to do in the pose. But there's something about getting into the pose and out of the pose, or from one shape into another shape. That we don't do a lot of that in this class because it's a Hatha style class and not a vinyasa class, right? And even in vinyasa classes, people sometimes they kind of know the shapes, and so they know what's coming next, and so they go, okay, boom, here's an island. This island is this asana, right? And then they jump to the next island, which is this asana, and they don't enjoy the voyage in between, shall we say? Yeah. So the intention behind this practice is that it will be a chance so there is no alignment really in this. Like we're gonna do some stuff in specific asana, of course, but what I want you to focus on is your own unique body's way of getting from one to the other, right? And you're probably gonna look totally different than the other people on the screen, and so don't look at the screen. So I mean, one of the nice things about practicing on Zoom, right, is that you're not looking around the room and saying, oh, they're doing it that way. Is that way better? And there can be some like inspiration in that, like, oh, I want to try it that way, right? But then there can also be comparison in that, right? And comparison is the enemy of joy. And so, like, I want you to look inward in this practice and find joy and a connection to the miraculous within your own body. The fact that you can move from that shape to this other shape, right? And we'll do some getting up from the floor and getting back down and kind of explore that in different ways. But the mindset is one of gentle curiosity and wonderment, right? And attention to, like, how do I do that on the right side? How do I do that on the left side? It might be totally different. You might have completely different strategies, right? Because you're right-handed or left-handed or whatnot. So they're roughly shoulder distance, maybe a little bit wider to make space for your feet. And then push into your blocks, lean into your left knee, and hug your right knee in towards your belly. And can you sneak your right foot between the blocks? And bring it back. Oh, look, a transition. Try it with the left. Lean your weight into your your right knee. Push the blocks away. So the more you push the blocks away, the more space you have for that leg to come forward. And see if you can sneak that foot between the blocks. And then sneak it back. And if you have to slide your foot, that's fine. If you have to be way up here, if you have to come all the way up because having your hands on the blocks, there's just not enough room to get your foot forward, maybe you do our balancing entry, right? If there's not enough room. But if you can keep your hands on the blocks and transition back and forth, stepping one foot between the blocks and then the other, do that. And just notice all of the micro asanas in between one position and the other. Can you do it as slow as your deep inhale and your deep exhale? Good. Next time your right foot is between the blocks, stay there and bring yourself up. So if you need to pad up your knee, please do. Okay, so stack your left hip on top of your left knee and bring your arms out in front of you. Push your arms forward and tuck your tailbone. So you're finding cat spine here, right? Really rounding. Feel how that tuck of the tailbone really increases the stretch at the front of the left hip flexor. Okay, now pull with your right heel, but keep this as if someone had scooped out your belly with an ice cream scoop. Try to keep that as you just pull yourself forward. It'll just be a little bit because you're not allowing your low back to get into it yet. And then keep pulling with the right heel until you can't help but allow your tailbone to untuck a little bit, but you're still fighting it, right? You're still trying to tuck that tailbone. It's like a tug of war. Bring your arms overhead. And then drive into your right heel, tuck your tailbone. Let the tuck of your tailbone win to bring yourself back upright. And then pull with the right heel. Tug of war, tug of war. Try not to untuck, try not to untuck. But then eventually you come into the lunge. And then tuck your tailbone so strongly that it's that tucking action that brings you back upright. Do a few and feel it out. So maybe you release some of that tug of war action. Maybe you flow the arms. But I want you to feel engagement across your pelvis and down through your low belly. And can you coordinate this with your breath? Okay, now feel how your low belly is connected to your thigh here. Try to keep that connection as if you had a $100 bill trapped between your lowest belly and that front thigh. Okay, even if they're not touching, imagine they were. And then you're gonna try to keep that contact point. Your fingertips can come to your blocks. And this time you're draping your torso over your right thigh as you start to straighten your right leg, Ardha Hanumanasana. So maybe that leg comes straight, maybe not all the way. You may want to walk your blocks a little further forward, depending on the length of your arms and your legs. And then pull with your right heel, tuck the tailbone as you transition, pull yourself back to the lunge. Keep that low belly and thigh connection as you drive into the right heel. Drape yourself over the right thigh as you straighten the leg any amount. And then pull with your right heel, tuck your tailbone as you come forward. Eventually the tailbone untucks as you come to the lunge. Okay, so now that was a lot of cueing and choreography, right? Now just make it feel good. So transitioning from the lunge into the half splits. You can move your hands to the floor. You can flow the arms, if that feels better. Do a couple. Feeling all of the poses in between. What's this pose called? What's this one called? What's this one? How about that? How about that? Get curious about what your body is doing, about what feels good in it. Okay, and then bring your hands back to your blocks. If you move them forward, move them back again so they're under your shoulders. Push into the blocks and find your beautiful transition back to both knees. Okay. Find your beautiful transition to your left foot between the blocks. And we'll repeat that work. Okay. Now, again, you can have your hands on your thighs for this. You're going to drive into your right heel and start to straighten your right leg as you lean out over your right leg. So moving between warrior two to triangle pose. So hands can be on thighs, hands can be on a chair, or your hand can be on your block to the outside of your right knee. Okay. So do this a few times. And feel every position in between. Can you keep your knee tracking with your toes as you bend and straighten that knee? Can you keep your hips relatively in line with your feet rather than sending them back behind you or dumping them forward as you move? Keep this whole this whole mechanism of your transition in line. And only straighten the right knee as much as feels powerful to you. Okay. And next time that right knee is straight, push into your block, open your left arm to the ceiling. So your block can be lower, or you can not use the block at all if you don't need it. But keep corkscrewing your right foot into the mat. So pull your heel to the midline, squeeze your legs, and as if you could drag your feet towards each other. Then try to straighten your torso out. So try to line your xiphoid process up with your pubic bone. Make yourself a straight line from your back hip through the crown of your head. Maybe gaze up at your left fingertips. Breathe here. Try to keep your hips in line with your feet. So notice if you're bent at the hips, if your hips are tucking back. All right, and then put a little bit of a bend in your right knee. Grab your block, even if you're not using it. And you're gonna bring your your left hand to your left hip. Hop your left foot in a little bit. So you're in kind of a shortened, this is actually kind of a shortened Parsva Konasana. Okay, reach the block out in front of you and tip your weight onto your right foot, Ardha Chandrasana. We haven't done this pose in a while. So here it is. So, but let's play with the transition, okay? Can you slowly, slowly, slowly bend the right knee and step back? Bring the block with you. Reach the block forward. And can you slowly, slowly, slowly drive into the right foot to lift that leg? Do it a few times and notice, where do you want to rush through the process? Can you slow that spot down? Like right here. Or is it right here? Or is it coming back down? Okay? And pretend you were stuck between two panes of glass, or like you were shimmying between two buildings that were built really close together, or you're trying to get through a fence, get somewhere you're not supposed to be. So you're trying not to really bend the shape out of this one plane. Just do one more. Try to make it happen over the course of an entire breath. Good. And then eventually pause in Ardha Chandrasana. Maybe you bring the left arm to the ceiling. Push your hips forward. Drive into the right heel. Be strong through that right leg. Be strong through the left leg. Can you make yourself longer from the left heel through the crown of the foot? Breathe deeply. Susie Zimmerman, that is perfect. You're doing great. That is a perfect modification. And then try to save enough energy to transition out slowly and with control. Straighten through the right leg. Spin your toes the opposite direction. And then walk the blocks out far in front of you and come to kind of this modified child's pose. So you can sink your hips back. And then walk the blocks over to the left and go as far as you want to. So as far as you feel comfortable. And then you're going to push down into the left hand and lift your right hand off the block, coming to this side bend. You can either leave your right knee down, or it might feel nice to extend the right leg long and really open up, like kind of a little bit towards like chest to ceiling, a little bit of a back bend. And then transition slowly back to both knees down. Sink your hips back and walk your block through center, reaching the blocks as far away from you as you can, getting a little bit of a stretch. Walking the blocks over to the right as far as you want. And then pushing down into the right hand, lifting the left arm, maybe staying in the kneeling side bend, or maybe extending the left leg, maybe turning the chest towards the ceiling. Okay, and then returning. So the blocks may feel nice and supportive. They may also feel a little clunky, like literally. So you can either continue working with the blocks. You may want to pad up the knees for this work. Or maybe you don't need the blocks. Move them out of the way. and you make this a little bit more of a sweeping movement, opening up to the side bend. And maybe as you make this more of a sweeping movement and you get more of that back bendy feeling, maybe reaching the planted hand a little further back and really opening up towards almost like a half camel position. Chest opening to the ceiling, supporting arm behind you. Try to make it as fluid and smooth as you can. Maybe even the supporting hand finds the heel like a real camel, and you spin all the way to kind of a half gate pose, camel pose situation. Try to make the whole transition last the whole breath. So the transition with the leg may feel tricky. So maybe you leave it out. Maybe you just go back and forth through child's pose-ish to half camel, maybe full camel, maybe full circle. Maybe going back the way you came.